The rain hammered down on the London streets like bullets against glass. Neon signs reflected off puddles, creating a kaleidoscope of colors that danced across the wet pavement. Traffic moved slowly through a congested intersection near Piccadilly Circus, where double-decker buses groaned alongside black cabs and delivery vans. Inside one particular taxi, Mohammed Hassan gripped the steering wheel with tired hands. He had been driving for 11 hours straight, trying to make enough money to cover his daughter's university tuition. The dashboard clock read 2:47 a.m., and he was contemplating calling it a night when everything changed in an instant. A silver Mercedes came out of nowhere, running a red light at dangerous speed. Mohammed barely had time to process what was happening before the luxury car clipped his taxi's rear bumper. The impact sent his vehicle spinning across the slick road. His head cracked against the side window. Glass exploded inward like frozen rain. The taxi finally stopped after mounting the curb. Its front end crumpled against a lamppost. Steam hissed from under the damaged hood, creating ghostly wisps in the cold night air. Mohammed sat stunned for several seconds, his ears ringing from the collision. Blood trickled down his temple from a gash above his eyebrow. His hands trembled as he tried to unbuckle his seatbelt. Through his cracked windshield, he watched the Mercedes driver stumble out of the vehicle. The man was clearly intoxicated, swaying on his feet, wearing an expensive suit that probably cost more than Mohammed earned in 3 months. What happened next made Mohammed's blood run cold. Instead of checking if anyone was hurt, the drunk driver staggered toward the taxi with rage contorting his face. His designer shoes splashed through puddles as he approached. Mohammed tried to open his door, but the impact had jammed it shut. He was trapped inside, watching this furious stranger getting closer with every unsteady step. While rain continued its relentless assault on the broken taxi, the drunk man reached Mohammed's taxi and began pounding on the driver's window with both fists. His face was flushed red, veins bulging at his temples. Spit flew from his mouth as he screamed obscenities that were barely coherent. Mohammed pressed himself back against the seat, heart hammering in his chest like a war drum. The few pedestrians brave enough to be out in this weather hurried past, pulling their coats tighter and avoiding eye contact. Nobody wanted to get involved in someone else's trouble at this hour. Finally, Mohammed managed to force his door open with a desperate shove. The hinges protested with a metallic screech. He stumbled out onto the wet pavement, legs shaking beneath him. Before he could even straighten up or catch his breath, the drunk man grabbed him by his jacket collar. The expensive fabric of the stranger's suit couldn't hide the alcohol fumes that rolled off him in waves. Mohammed tried to explain that they should exchange insurance information and call the police, but his words were cut short. The first punch came fast and hard, connecting with Mohammed's jaw with a sickening crack. Pain exploded across his face like fireworks. He tasted copper in his mouth as blood mixed with rain. His vision blurred. He tried to defend himself, raising his arms to protect his head, but the attacker was younger and stronger. Another blow landed in his ribs, forcing the air from his lungs in a painful whoosh. Mohammed dropped to one knee on the cold, wet concrete, gasping for breath. The assault continued with brutal efficiency. Each punch felt like a hammer strike. Mohammed's world reduced to flashes of pain and the sound of rain hitting the pavement around him. He thought about his wife, his daughter waiting at home, wondering if he would see them again. The drunk man showed no signs of stopping, his rage seeming to fuel itself with each violent strike. Just when Mohammed thought he might lose consciousness, when darkness began creeping into the edges of his vision, something extraordinary happened that would change everything that a car door slammed with authority that cut through the chaos. Heavy footsteps approached with purpose. Mohammed, still on his knees and trying to shield himself from the ongoing assault, barely registered the new presence. But his attacker did. The drunk man froze mid-swing, his fist suspended in the air. His bloodshot eyes widened with sudden recognition and unmistakable fear. The transformation was immediate and complete. One moment he was a raging bull. The next he looked like a scared child caught stealing cookies. Mohammed lifted his head slowly, blinking through the rain and blood obscuring his vision. What he saw seemed impossible. Standing there in the downpour was a man who looked exactly like the action star Jason Statham. Not someone who resembled him. Not a look-alike. The actual Jason Statham, looking every bit as intimidating as he did in his films. He wore a simple black jacket over a gray shirt, jeans, and boots. Water streamed down his shaved head. His jaw was set in a hard line. His eyes held the kind of cold intensity that made grown men reconsider their life choices. The drunk attacker stumbled backward, nearly tripping over his own feet. His hands came up defensively, all previous aggression evaporating like morning mist. He tried to speak, but only incoherent stammering came out. Jason stepped forward with the confident stride of someone who had been in countless confrontations, both scripted and real. He positioned himself between Mohammed and the drunk man, creating a human barrier that seemed absolutely impenetrable. The tension in that moment was thick enough to cut with a knife. Rain continued falling steadily, creating a curtain of water around the three men. Somewhere in the distance, sirens began their mournful wail, growing louder with each passing second. The drunk man looked at Jason, then at Mohammed, then back at Jason. Whatever courage alcohol had given him had completely abandoned him now. He faced a choice: continue his assault in front of one of Hollywood's most famous tough guys, or retreat and face the consequences of what he had already done. The fear in his eyes suggested he was desperately wishing he could turn back time. Jason's voice cut through the night like a blade through silk. It was calm, controlled, and absolutely terrifying in its quiet intensity. He told the drunk man to step away and sit on the curb, hands visible. It wasn't a request. It was a command that carried the weight of inevitable consequences if disobeyed. The drunk man complied immediately, moving like a puppet whose strings had been cut. He collapsed onto the wet curb, head hanging between his knees, all fight drained from his system like water through a broken dam. Jason turned his attention to Mohammed, kneeling beside the injured taxi driver with genuine concern etched across his famous features. He asked if Mohammed could stand, if anything felt broken. His hands moved with surprising gentleness as he helped Mohammed to his feet, supporting his weight without any visible effort. Mohammed stared at his unexpected savior in disbelief, wondering if perhaps a head injury was causing hallucinations. But the strong grip on his arm felt real. The concerned questions sounded real. Everything about this surreal situation was somehow genuinely happening. A small crowd had begun gathering at a safe distance, phones out and recording. The blue lights of approaching police cars painted the wet street in strobing patterns. Jason retrieved a clean towel from his vehicle and pressed it against the cut on Mohammed's forehead. He spoke quietly, telling Mohammed to apply pressure, that help was coming, that everything would be all right. His presence brought a strange sense of calm to the chaotic scene. Mohammed found himself nodding, trusting this stranger completely despite the bizarre circumstances. When the police arrived, Jason didn't step back or try to leave. He stayed right there, giving his statement with the same straightforward clarity he brought to his film roles. He explained exactly what he had witnessed: the reckless driving, the collision, the unprovoked assault. His words carried authority that the officers clearly respected. The drunk man was handcuffed without resistance and placed in the back of a police car. Paramedics arrived and began treating Mohammed's injuries, checking his pupils, cleaning his wounds, asking standard concussion protocol questions. Through it all, Jason remained present, a solid anchor in the swirling confusion. The hospital emergency room buzzed with typical late-night activity. Mohammed sat on an examination table, his wife Fatima clutching his hand while their daughter Mira paced nervously nearby. The doctors had confirmed a mild concussion, bruised ribs, and multiple contusions, but nothing permanently damaging. He would heal. The physical wounds would fade, but the memory of what happened, and more importantly who had helped him, would stay forever etched in his mind like words carved in stone. Jason had followed the ambulance to the hospital in his own vehicle. He waited in the lobby for 2 hours until Mohammed's family arrived, making sure the taxi driver wasn't alone. When Fatima and Amira rushed in, Jason quietly introduced himself and explained what had transpired. Fatima had broken down crying, hugging this famous stranger who had protected her husband when no one else would. Amira stood speechless, torn between concern for her father and amazement at meeting a legitimate movie star under such extraordinary circumstances. Before leaving, Jason did something that surprised everyone. He pulled Mohammed aside and handed him a business card with a personal number written on the back. He told Mohammed to call about getting his taxi repaired, said he knew people who could help expedite the insurance claim, and get him back on the road quickly. More than that, he wanted to make sure Mohammed's family didn't suffer financially because of this incident. Mohammed tried to protest, saying it was too much, but Jason simply smiled and told him to let good people help good people. The story exploded across social media within hours. Videos from witnesses went viral, accumulating millions of views overnight. News outlets picked up the story, running headlines about the Hollywood action hero who became a real-life hero on London streets. Interview requests poured in from every major network. But Jason declined them all. He released one simple statement through his publicist. He had done what any decent person should do, nothing more. Mohammed, however, gave several interviews, tearfully recounting how this famous stranger had stepped in without hesitation, expecting nothing in return. 3 months later, Mohammed drove a newly repaired taxi through those same London streets. A small photograph hung from his rear-view mirror, him standing with Jason Statham outside the hospital, both smiling despite the circumstances. Whenever passengers noticed it and asked about the story, Mohammed would tell them everything. He would explain that heroes don't just exist in movies. Sometimes they step out of luxury cars in the rain when strangers need them most. Sometimes they prove that fame and fortune don't have to corrupt, that kindness and courage can coexist with celebrity. And sometimes, when the world feels dark and dangerous, someone unexpectedly appears to remind us that good people still exist, ready to stand between the innocent and those who would do them harm. Retry,